This is an AQA Psychology A-level revision video for the paper 1 topic of attachments with a specific focus on the role of the father. So let's have a look at where the role of the father fits in the bigger picture. It's the first specification bullet point here where it says multiple attachments and the role of the father. So the role of the father can be examined in its own element in isolation, but also with your knowledge in terms of multiple attachments, which is the video by Schaffer and Emerson. So one of the questions attachment research has to answer concerns who infants become attached to. Traditionally, we don't think of the father as the primary attachment figure. There are biological and social reasons, so I'd like you to pause the video and jot down some reasons why it is that attachment research lacks in terms of the role of the father. And in 5 seconds, we'll go through the answers. So there may be some biological reasons in terms of hormone levels that they lack emotional sensitivity and aren't psychologically equipped with the important aspects of raising a child. So they have less estrogen and oxytocin, which are those sort of hormones that allow mother and baby to bond and connect. The love hormone, oxytocin, is known as. And also biologically, they aren't born to birth a child, therefore potentially not biologically wired to raise a child, are some of the biological arguments, and some of the biological reasons research into the father is lacking. Also, social reasons, the cultural expectations and the stereotypes of what it is to be a man in terms of being sensitive and being affectionate. Society has drawn that out of men, and so the argument there is that there are social reasons why the role of the father is seen as a less important, or less research has gone into it. But, and this is a big but, fathers who are primary caregivers display typical behaviours of a mother. The gender of the caregiver doesn't actually matter, but it's suggested that the responsiveness of the caregiver is what matters. So you've got a really important study here by Field in 1978, which should be a key study for your content on the role of the father. And what Field did was film 4-month-old babies in face-to-face interactions with primary caregiver mothers, so the mothers that were the first caregiver, secondary caregiver fathers, so your typical fathers that are after the mother, but also primary caregiver fathers, so the first caregiver being the father for that child. So what they found was that primary caregiver mother and fathers spent more time smiling and holding the infant than secondary caregivers. So that's really important because it shows actually that fathers do have a role, and it's really important in building the attachment with the infant. So fathers can be more nurturing in an attachment figure, and that's what research does actually show. Fathers also have an important role as secondary attachment figures, so we can't dispute that. Research has highlighted that fathers are more playful and physically active than mothers. A father is an exciting playmate, whereas mothers are conventional and tend to read to their children. So the father gets the playmate aspect even when they are the secondary attachment figure. So that is what research has shown about the role of the father. You've got 2 pieces of research there, but Field being the main one. So when you consider what the role of the father actually is and how you can evaluate it, there are some statements on the screen for you to consider, for you to develop and elaborate on, and then in 5 seconds we will look at how we can do that. So with each of these evaluation points, we can approach from the viewpoint of, well, what is the role of the father? Is research telling us what the role of the father is or not? So first of all, the research has inconsistent findings because researchers are interested in different research questions when it comes to the role of the father. Some want to understand the father as a secondary attachment figure, whereas others want to understand the father as primary caregivers. So do you want to understand the role of the father as a playmate or as a caregiver? Because the research isn't clear on that. It's massively inconsistent. What is the role of the father? We don't know because they understand it from different perspectives. They're not consistent in their approach. Another issue with the role of the father, what is the role of the father, is it doesn't explain why children without fathers develop no differently. So you've got research here by McCallum and Golombek, it found that children growing up in single or same-sex parent families, so single families without a father, don't develop any differently from those with a mother and a father, two-parent and heterosexual families. So the role of the father as a secondary attachment figure, maybe it's not important. What is the role of the father? The research is not getting to that point. And again, what is the role of the father? Well, there's numerous influences on a child's emotional development: the culture, the father's beliefs, the father's sensitivity, marital intimacy, the amount of time the father spends away from home. There's too many variables to control, and so it's hard to conclude the role of the father. And finally, what is the role of the father? A weakness is that it doesn't explain why fathers don't become primary attachment figures. So this could be due to traditional gender roles, or it could link back to what we said at the start of the video. It could be about biological aspects where women are sort of expected to be more caring and nurturing than men, and men don't feel that they should act like that with children. So it means psychologists can't actually answer the simple question of what is the role of the father. So you only need 3 evaluation points for the role of the father. So you want to consider, can you best argue the inconsistent findings? Can you best argue the research by McCulloch and Golombek, which found that children growing up without fathers don't develop any differently? So maybe the role of the father isn't that important. Or would you want to talk about how there's too many variables when investigating the role of the father? Or this particular point here, where actually research doesn't explain why fathers aren't the primary attachment figure. So 4 different sort of routes to go down, but all ending with that same point of what is the role of the father? Psychologists can't establish it. There's too many variables. We don't know how to research fathers. We don't know what their role is. So that concludes the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful.